So, it's normally at this stage I say, so you want to break into advertising? Shit, what now? But actually, what we're talking about today is brand experience. And here to help guide us through that is Grace Francis. Grace is the Chief Experience Officer at Karmarama, a top agency in London, which has recently been acquired by Accenture management consultancy. So she comes from an interesting place whereby it's at an intersection of creativity, but then the rigor and principles of a management consultancy. So as you'll find out in this episode, it's not so much about adverts to tell people to do something, but actually designing experiences that predisposition people to be more inclined to interact with that brand. So it's super interesting in an ever-growing space. So if you have a basic fascination of human behavior and consumer insights, then this is definitely the career path for you within the world of advertising as such. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe below. And as always, enjoy the episode. Hey Grace, welcome to Shit What Now. How are you today?
I'm really good, thank you. It's early morning where I am. It's lightly grey. The birds are singing even though it's grey. Can't really complain.
Awesome. And I saw in the news that a bunch of restrictions have been lifted this week in London, which is great.
Yeah, loads of people are ready to go. How many people are ready to go back to the office versus go to a pub is probably different, but that's fine. See how it goes bit by bit. Everyone feels differently.
Absolutely. So Grace, a lot of the people who will be watching this will be at university in their last sort of year looking to break into the industry. And so with that, in that regard, could you please tell us a bit about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So my title is Chief Experience Officer, which is a title that's only really existed in the creative industry for the last 4 or 5 years. I was one of the first people I know to have it. And there's only a few of us now. And really, that's about how the creative industry has changed. So we've gone from knowing that we can persuade people by showing them something to knowing that we can authentically connect with people as brands by allowing brands to show up in the world and make a significant difference. It doesn't always have to be about something altruistic. It can be about something super fun. But our job is to make sure brands are present in your life rather than just grabbing 10 seconds of your time before you watch a YouTube video.
I love that definition of it as well. It's whoever you talk to, there always seems to be a different definition of it in whatever vertical that might be. But how did you get into it then, Grace? Take us back from the start. What's been your journey?
Yeah, so for me, I'm always interested in jobs that have a title that nobody understands because it gives you freedom to work out what it is and to do what you want as well. So I started off in content, and then again, content didn't really have such a clear definition as it has today. It was seen more as like the building blocks of any experience online. And then I moved into a very early version of what was called experience, and people also thought it was UX, that kind of thing. And then really today what I practice is brand experience, which is the definition we've just shared. So I like to try on a lot of different jobs, and I also like to work in different environments. For the last 7 or so years, I've worked in super creative agencies, but before that I was working in tech agencies. And for me, it's always about being the person who's trying something new, who's working out how to make that change and getting people to come along with me.
Yeah, brilliant. And speaking of people to come along with you, so when you're at the interview table and there's a grad in front of you looking to become a young experienced designer, or insert whatever job title you're after, what do you look for in them?
I think there's only 2 things that matter, and that's being interested in what we're talking about and being interesting, having something that you're passionate about. It doesn't even have to be what the job is about. And those 2 factors really change things for me. Over the years, I've hired people at both the beginning of their careers and quite advanced in their careers who don't have a CV that looks like it came from a book. They might have come from very different places. They might have done very different jobs before, but those 2 elements mean they're going to learn and they're going to be invested in what they're doing. And for me, that's all you need.
Totally. And a growth mindset, some might say as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's a lot of different principles within experience design, one being double diamond, for example. Are there ways that someone could use some of those principles to find the job that they're after?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. One of the things I do outside of my work is to use design thinking principles to help people make decisions. And I realized quite a long time ago that the tools we apply to help big corporations or big brands can actually be applied to ourselves as well. So yeah, I think there's a whole world of that. I think the most significant thing with that is to help us recognize it's not always about getting to a decision. It's about understanding what different decisions offer. And that gives us the freedom to then, talk to our friends, talk to our parents, whoever it might be that we trust. But we've got a much better sense of, is it option A or is it option B? What do I want to go for?
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Someone once said to me that establishing your career is not about being right, but being about less wrong, and just trying those different things.
Yeah, and I think at this point in time, it's far more freeing to try something on, and if you don't like it, to move on to something else as well. You don't have to be stuck. If we look at previous generations, think about boomers, they might have been in a career the whole of their lives, and once they were in, they were stuck with it. Even I haven't had that. I stayed in the same industry, but tried on different jobs. But for you, not only can you try something and see how you feel about it, you can also make new things for yourselves as well. You can make those definitions. For people who are studying right now, the jobs they'll have in 10 years don't really exist yet. And that's incredibly scary, but it's also incredibly exciting.
Exactly right. I really do feel that people at university now, my little sister being one of them, you really are in such a strong position to pave your own path forward. And really it goes back to having less technical skills, but more so, I guess, crafting your attitude and making sure that, you are open-minded and are kind of, I guess, can't say that word. Ready to take on whatever it might be, and just find your strengths inherently that can be applied to several different verticals.
Yeah, totally. I was talking to someone the other day and they said, what would you do if you came into our office in another region? What was the first thing you would do? And obviously this is at work. And I said, okay, well, I would go and find the most junior pair and say to them, what are you trying to tell us that we're not able to listen to because we're too old? What is the thing or idea that you want us to understand that we just can't get? And I think if we don't do that, our industry dies. So it's so important to understand that people who are starting their careers not only have something to contribute, they have everything to contribute. It will absolutely shape the creative industry, and we need to be connected to that.
Absolutely, absolutely, and the best agencies embrace that. I think there was a time in some agencies as well where the young person's role was just to sit there and be a sponge and absorb and kind of summarize things at the end and try and chip in here and there. And some brave enough might suggest something in a meeting, but I think really it's about just creating a hole in the wall that's in the shape of you, and just kind of failing forward and just going like, well, "This is what I think, guys."
Yeah, absolutely, and it's recognizing that all work, whatever industry you're in, is a construct, and you're trying to work out what that construct is and where you fit in. But actually, as soon as you realize it's just a bunch of people doing a thing, there isn't a set of rules that have to be obeyed. You can make your own space. You can contribute. And years ago, I worked with a CEO that was so good. When you were sitting in a room together, he'd do two things. The first thing he'd do is when anyone said anything great, he would point at them and go, "Wow, that's great. That's amazing." And to hear the CEO say that to you, if you're an intern, or even if you're very senior, you feel great. And then the other thing he'd do is sit and wait to see who wasn't talking and then say, "Hey, you haven't said anything. What do you think of the idea?" And he did that to me on day one when I was in the beginning of my leadership career. But he would also do it continuously to people who were at internships in junior roles. And it just gave you the courage to say, "Do you know what? I am going to tell you what I think." And on that first day, I took a risk and I pointed out a hole I thought was in the creative. And he paused for a second and then he said, "Wow, how come I didn't see that? How come none of us saw that? Right, we need to work on that." And that safe environment is what I'm always trying to recreate in my own career.
Yeah, brilliant, brilliant. I love that. And speaking of your career, as you mentioned, you've had various roles and in various agencies. If you could effectively pick up the phone and talk to yourself at the very beginning, what would be your advice?
Yeah, I think I'd probably say don't get freaked out that you've ended up with a 9 to 5 job, although it's not 9 to 5, is it? It's a lot more hours. But I think when I was young, I thought I would be doing something that didn't have any semblance of structure. I thought I'd be doing something very, very different. And I now work for a company that's owned by a massive consultancy. And when I was young, I thought that would feel like a cage, and actually it's scaffolding. It's the scaffolding to allow me to do better and stranger and more innovative work than I could do if I were sitting in a company on my own. And so I think it's about understanding that sometimes structure and establishment are in fact really useful, rather than thinking, no, I've got to go my own way, I've got to do something different.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Well, Grace, as we draw to a close, is there anything else you wanted to add?
I think I would say if you're starting out in your career, it's not your responsibility to fix or change the way an organization works. It's your responsibility to get involved and find a place for you. Don't feel the weight of it. If it doesn't feel like a good fit, you don't have to be responsible for changing it. What you should be doing is finding an ally, someone along your side who can help you find that fit. But sometimes when we come into companies, it feels like if something's wrong, we have to be responsible for making it work. So I'd definitely say find a friend, find a colleague, and let them help you find that place. And remember, if it's not a perfect fit, go to the next place. That's always an option.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Grace, thank you so much for coming on today. It's been great talking to you and hearing what an experienced designer has to say about the industry, because you're the first one on here. So thank you again for your time.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's great.